Okay, so what these videos are for, we're going to give you a series of videos giving you some tips on the IELTS speaking test. So if you're watching this video, then you should be sometime in the near future taking this test. I'm going to give you some ideas about how you can achieve the score that you want. Now, the first tip that I'm going to give you is learn how the test is scored. So, you need to know what the examiner is looking for in your English speaking. If you know what they're looking for, then you can give them what you want and what they want and prepare effectively. Now, they do have a criteria which they follow. So if I give you these criteria, it's four main things that you have to think about. Firstly, and not necessarily most importantly, is your grammar. Now, they're going to be listening very closely to how you're using grammar in your speech. Now, more specifically, they're thinking about your grammatical range and accuracy. So this is your ability to use different sentence structures, different word forms, and different tenses, and using them in the correct way. So obviously this is a very important part of how they're assessing your English. So that's the first one. Now the next one would be pronunciation. Now, obviously, this is very important for English communication, so people can understand what you're saying. If you don't pronounce words correctly, then people can't understand what you're saying. So there is much weight given to this as this. And in a way, these two things are connected. If you're thinking about word endings, and we have an S on the end of a word, or you have an ED ending, you've got to make sure you make this sound. If you don't, then they don't know that you know what the correct grammar is. Even if when you write, you use the correct grammar, when you speak, you've got to make sure that you're making these sounds so people can understand what you're saying. So that's the second thing. The third would be this, lexical resource. Now, by lexical resource, this basically means your vocabulary. Now, not just using complex vocabulary to try and show off. It's your ability to use vocabulary in the correct way, in the correct context. So it's learning words in depth, not just relying on a translation dictionary from your language into English, because often this doesn't explain a word properly. When we're learning new words, we need to learn all the different contexts where you can use the word, all the different definitions of the word, because there will be more than one, and all the different forms of the word. All very important. So gradually you need to be building up your vocabulary. And to get really high scores, we need to think about idiomatic language that people often use in speech in native English-speaking countries. So again, a very important part of the test. And finally, we have fluency. Or more specifically, fluency and coherence. So this is your ability to, okay, for one, you have to speak at the correct speed. So you don't want to be speaking too fast, and you don't want to be speaking too slowly. So it's important you find the correct speed and the correct length of your answer, and it's easy for the examiner to understand what you're saying. So there we go. We've covered the 4 points that you will be assessed on, and this is the first tip, and probably one of the most important tips. And remember, these 4 things are given equal weight in the test. So each of them are kind of 25% each. So they're all just as important as each other. There's no good neglecting one of these areas. You have to improve or try to work on all of these areas to attain a high score. So there we go. That's the first tip for you. And we'll be back soon with another tip for you.